I found an article in Reuters that in traditional media days would be a lead news story. Now, once again, we know their directive. Their directive is to not give Trump credit for anything. They slipped up the other day and told you his approvals were 45% per a CNN poll. I don't know how that happened, and I can assure you the person that allowed that is no longer employed at CNN. I mean, they are no longer employed at CNN. But, Rev, did you know that the U.S. will be able to sell more vehicles and auto parts in South Korea under a deal the Trump administration Tuesday hailed as the first significant victory in its America First policy of imposing steel tariffs on steel imports? A lot of us understand the bluster of Donald Trump. I said, philosophically, I'm opposed to tariffs, but I understand why they're part of the discourse today. We've had a disenfranchised group of voters, workers in certain areas of our country who are loyal to Donald Trump, and politically he's got to repay the favor, so he introduces steel tariffs. Well, here's how a business guy works. I've got to create leverage. I mean, I don't want to be in a position that I don't have any leverage and the other guy has all the leverage. Well, out of the announcement that we will consider tariffs on certain countries who don't renegotiate in good faith, guess what happened with the deal we have with South Korea? We will be allowed to sell more cars. They will be allowed to import less steel. That's negotiating. That's looking after American interest. In addition to allowing more cars, the deal imposes a limit of 2.68 million tons of steel Korea can export to the U.S. That amount is equal to 70% of the annual average Korean steel exports to the U.S. between 2015 and 2017. The agreement, it's essentially a renegotiating anyway. I mean, that's what it is. South Korea calls Trump calls South Korea. Hey, man, are you serious about these tariffs? Yeah, if you guys don't sit down with us, I'm real serious about it. I'm very serious about it. I'm tired of the country I preside over being taken advantage of in trade deals. He said that on the campaign trail. We got a bunch of idiots in Washington to make bad deals. Why? Because nobody in Washington really knows how to make a deal in the real world. They make political deals, but this is a real deal. We've always had something, not always, but since 2007, we've had something called the U.S.-Korean Trade Act. KORUS, K-O-R-U-S is what it's called. Both countries signed this trade act in 2007, and this is essentially a renegotiating of that 2007 trade agreement. And as we sat down, South Korea said, hey, I'll tell you what we'll do. If you don't impose the steel tariffs and the aluminum tariffs, we'll allow you to import more of your American-made automobiles. And the Trump administration, Mnuchin and Wilbur Ross and all the people that represent us in that realm of expertise said, okay, I'll tell you what. We need that, but we also need you guys not exporting as much cheap steel as you are. We're not going to cut you off. We shouldn't cut you off. We need to be free and fair traders, but we can't let the market be a glutton of steel on the markets. So we threaten to put tariffs on steel of 25%, 10% on imported aluminum. What does it do? It's already bearing fruit. We have a better negotiated deal with our friends in South Korea. Now, as a result of this renegotiating, South Korea will escape the U.S. tariff on steel, but officials say no deal was reached on the aluminum tariff. They've made a deal on the steel tariff. South Korea is now exempt because they're going to allow American manufacturers to sell more cars in South Korea, and they're going to allow a little less steel, about 30% less Korean steel into the U.S. market. This is interesting to me. Under the renegotiated KORUS, K-O-R-U-S, South Korea will allow the U.S. to extend its 25% tariff on imports of Korean pickup trucks by an additional 20 years to 2041. And South Korea will double to 50,000 the number of U.S. vehicles entering the country annually that don't have to meet Korean safety standards as long as they meet U.S. safety standards. It's negotiating. It's the private sector. Why is none of this ever being reported on? Why are we never? Can you imagine if Barack Obama or Bill Clinton, or even George W. Bush for that matter, can you imagine if anybody other than Donald Trump, one random day this week, had completely renegotiated a trade deal with South Korea very much in Americans' best interest? I mean, this article's on CNBC, and I mean, they're no big fan of Donald Trump. I mean, I'll assure you that. You read CNBC, they are a subsidiary of NBC, and they don't have a high opinion of Donald Trump. You want to lose your job? Say some complimentary things on CNBC, or for that matter, any affiliate of NBC, and you'll find out how quickly they'll dispose of you and your talents. But they're waking up and saying, "Hey, man, this guy's doing some things that are in the Americans' best interest." Where have we heard this?
I have not heard.
You won't hear it
till you said it.
Well, I mean, it's an article on CNBC. There's an article in Reuters. Is the only place I found it. Instead, we're spending hour after hour after hour after hour talking about an adult film star. The New York Times had a report yesterday that maybe or maybe not, there's a rumor, there's a report, there's a leak that Trump considered pardoning Flynn and Manafort. How is that a report? I mean, there's a report that there potentially could have been, a random something or other thrown out there. And that's a lead news story. I'm on the treadmill last night at the gym. And the crawl is, Trump considered pardoning Flynn and Manafort. The Trump White House says, no, we never considered that. I mean, I would imagine you talk about a lot of things in the privacy of the Oval Office or your administration. But why are we not talking about serious issues like trade deals and things like that? I can tell you why. Because they have no interest in the good things this American president does. And this is a big deal. This is completely renegotiating under the radar a trade deal, exactly what Trump said on the campaign trail, that is not in American workers' best interest. And it's redone now. And it's a new deal today. Let's take a break. We'll be back after the break. Get straight to the phones. I promise you we'll get straight to the phones. I want to thank Schofield's Good Morning PD, Live 95.